Where's the love? Where's the love? Is right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant. I got my man with me.
What's up, Joe?
OTL, what's up?
I'm cool. How you?
I'm doing good, man.
Real HU, huh?
Yeah, man. Eight in a row,
Yeah.
man.
Is it? Is it that many in a row?
Honestly, bro, I got to Hampton in '97. I think we may have lost to them in football maybe 3 times
Oh yeah.
since '97.
So it ain't really as much of a competition on that level with the.
It's a walkthrough.
Yeah.
It's a walkthrough at this point.
Yeah, we've been here before too. That's crazy. I remember last year, same story. You know what I'm saying?
Death and taxes, man.
Yeah, that's all. And that. Only thing you show up. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Had a good time though. It's always good to reconnect with folks, and you know, I think the rivalry between Howard and Hampton is very lighthearted. Like we were,
yeah, for sure,
right next to the Howard folks. It was, you know, people that we know for a long time. It's hard to go to Hampton or Howard and not know the opposite school like people. So it's always cool.
And then I can imagine even like past that, it's probably people that came from the same high schools, same neighborhoods that went to, each institution or whatever the case may be. So they got shared experiences even before and of course after. And especially, I mean, I know people came from all over, but especially it's a ton of Howard people here because it's in DC, but there's also a ton of Hampton folks from DC or people that left Hampton and start working and live in DC. So I can imagine, man.
Yeah, good times though. I hope they keep the classic, the contract going because they're not in the same conference anymore.
Right. So this is like intentional for them. Yeah.
They're not going to play unless they sign the contract to do the Truth Classic.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what's up, man. A lot was going on. 8th Street Day was Saturday.
Yeah.
That was I was able to attend that, and just some quick observations of just thinking about how much that has grown. You know what I'm saying?
I heard the number was crazy for attendance.
Bro, I mean, we were there sort of on the earlier end. I mean, and on the earlier end, it looked like what you normally see towards that like 5, 6 o'clock time. It was just crazy, you know what I'm saying? But in a good way, you know. And I love how again with it in its growth, I'm seeing it just have things for the kids. The music selections is like it's different music at like each block. Like all that thought is being put into it. And for me, it's just beautiful to see every facet of DC come together. That's what I see that at 8th Street Day in a very like overt way. Like, and it's beautiful to see everybody just out there together. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, shout out to Anwar and all everybody who helped put that together. I hope that it continues to, as it grows though, right? I think we have to be very intentional about growing, but also preserving, if that makes sense. I've seen a lot of stuff here in our city start one way, and then it just, as it grows or becomes more popular, it sheds its original, skin, if you will. Right. And I'm bringing that up to say that I don't feel like that's happening with 8th Street Day. That's my observation.
And honestly, the most successful events are the ones that show that intention. Yeah. Auto Night is coming up.
Yeah, Auto Night.
They've done the same thing too.
Super excited about that. Where you going this year?
I love Congress Heights. That's my number one.
Yeah, that's your closeout though.
Yeah, that's a closeout. The library.
Yeah,
MLK. So
library last year.
I missed that last year. Yeah. 2 years ago, I was up at Van Ness too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you seen that grow and had more locations. Yeah. I might try to make another stop. I don't know if they round our way this year. Yeah. But I'm definitely doing the library. That was a different. That joint was a good look. Yeah. I'm sure Congress Heights is gonna be amazing. And now you got Sycamore Oak. I don't know if that's gonna be weaved into it. Keanu and all them over there. That's anyway flying the flag for the arts and all that. So man. Yeah,
one other thing I want to highlight, just really quick. Congratulations to the latest cohort, Pathways.
Shout out to cohort 17.
Yeah, cohort 17, man. I was thinking about that today. Today is Sherman's birthday.
Yeah. And Shay.
Yeah, and Shay. Yes.
Yeah, Shay birthday. And Sherm. Shout out to Sherman Justice. Shout out. just to thee Shay Harris, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They both abroad right now. You know, they
Yeah.
both, over across the water, living their life, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know Sherm and Nokomis is with Sherm too. I saw that.
Okay, I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nokomis is they in Dubai. Shay was in Barcelona. She's somewhere. I mean, I don't know. Ain't no telling where she at today.
Yeah.
I know the last 3 days she was in Barcelona. Ain't no. It looked like she changed location.
But that speaks to, I think, the attention to wellness and reinvesting in yourself
100%.
for the people in that work.
Yeah, man, it's
Right?
necessary.
It's necessary.
It's necessary.
And I was thinking about Sherman. I was thinking about Duck. I was thinking about Tracy Webster.
Yeah,
just
man.
people at different points in their career in that space, and seeing them Friday, supporting the men as they came through.
Yeah, bro.
So that was a good thing.
One of the things, and before just to end on this, one of the things that touched me. You mentioned Tracy, Cray, who was the sort of the top ambassador, the class speaker, talked about Tracy's journey, how much it inspired him, and what it had me thinking, coupled with your remarks about sort of like the birth of the legislation that created opportunity like Pathways, and us knowing where that came from, the advocacy, the blood, sweat, and tears, you know what I'm saying, to even get that there. And it really had me thinking about the start of the program and how it, we would pray that one day it would grow to a point where we wouldn't have to go above and beyond the recruit. That the people that came through would be the advertisement. And Cray's remarks sort of solidified that that's what happened. He was there not because of you or me or somebody else or anybody else. He was there because of Tracy, somebody that he know, somebody that he watched, that he's his peer that had pivoted, had changed his life, that made him believe that, it was some possibility in that program to help him do a similar thing. And I think that was like so heavy to me, because that was our dream. You know what I'm saying?
That's the strongest case you can make. Like you said, we can't make the case. The Traces of the world make the case. Todd came back for the graduate, and people like that, right? Like they made an effort to come back and see their friends graduate. And I think Donald, he was the fifth of his crew to come through.
Yeah, think about that.
So, and he came through only because the other four
people. Though.
Yeah,
other four people, and in that program. Sometimes we feel like, we too close to it in a way for people to understand what we're saying, though. But in a program that was aimed at our city's most likely to harm or be harmed, you know what I mean? That and during the graduation, they wrote the names of 17 people that had been a part of that program that had been killed, right? And that was deep to me to see those names. We know all those people. We touched all them lives. But in addition, as I was so saddened by that, but then I'm thinking about 425 people that come through that program. And that's 4%, not to talk about lives like that. But that's a life program. That ain't no jobs program.
Yeah. That
program was designed to save lives. And then 4%, and then less than that, they've been charged with a homicide. That's life-changing work. And so shout out to Pathways, every participant, every person that has come through those doors, that worked there, past, present. And I think one of the things that's not talked about enough in that program, is the most revolutionary thing that happens there, is the one-on-one therapy that those men participate in. The healing journey that they're set on. And today, we're honored to have a sister who's at the helm of that, right? Organization that her and her husband runs, Community Wellness Ventures, is instrumental in what happens, not only to young men in that program, but also instrumental in bringing similar services to some of our violence interrupters. But we can get all into that. We want to thank Dr. Charlayne Hayling-Williams for being here with us today. Dr. C.
Dr.
Right.
C.
Thank you for being here, Dr. C.
Thank you for having me.
What's
Thank
happening?
you. It's an honor to be here.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Good. So we're gonna jump right into this, right? Dr. C, I remember when I first met you, it was over at DOES, well, at least in my memory. Maybe we met or was in the same space prior to this, but this is the when I remember, it was the Career Connections program, the inaugural Career Connection, like the first pilot. And you were working with that program. I think Courtney Snowden was the deputy mayor at the time, right? That's when they first launched the Shannon Place office, this, and that. And Mo and them was doing the Career Connections. How was that your first, or CWV's first engagement with the sort of that at-risk adult population? Or had you been doing that work prior to?
You know, I almost don't remember a time since I was 18 years old, and I started the summer after my freshman year at FAMU. I came back to Baton Rouge, where I'm from, and I went to the juvenile detention facility, all male unit, and I asked the superintendent to allow me to do something that resembled rap sessions, mentorship, something to check on their well-being. He says, no way I'm sending you back there. And I was like, oh, we haven't met, but let me reintroduce myself. I'm going back there. And I'm going to, I don't care if I need to wear a turtleneck every day in the summer in Louisiana, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Fantastic summer. I was back there every day. And that set me on this path. And they were probably, they were 12 to 18 years old, 12 to 17 and 3/4. And I was 19, 18 and a half. Sure. And they didn't know that. But I say that to say it's been literally my passion work for as long as I could do it. So I had taken 2 semesters as a psychology major, and I was ready to hit the streets.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah, you was ready to go.
Oh, man. Yeah, but I was like, you don't have to pay me. I just want access to really connect. And I could feel that transformation that happened on the human level that really validated that it's what I was born for.
Yeah.
So, no, Career Connections came, at that point, 15 years later.
Right, right. So from that first engagement at the juvenile spot, right? And so you, after that experience, you go back to FAMU, right? And so when you did you while your rest of your time in FAMU, did you like go back every summer to that place, or did you engage in other like carceral spaces during your undergrad and graduate period? Because you went to when you left FAMU, you went to Lehigh.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right.
So, I've always sort of envisioned work at the nexus of behavioral, mental health, and public safety, more so around justice for Black folks. That's been my focus the entire time. You can't really do that work without thinking about all the systems and the way that people end up in a place of need and such healing, right? So, because the idea is that your wellness isn't under attack every day. But we know the reality. So, I came through undergrad with that consciousness, thinking about what are all the experiences and training that I was trying to just put it all in my bag, like my toolkit. So that looked like doing in-home work for kids who were expelled from school. So it was like a behavioral specialist. And then, you go from that to doing really deep research, something I was really proud of, kind of as I was finishing up at a Ronald E. McNair Fellowship. Because I think the critical question for everybody is kind of like, what tools and skills, what is your unique kind of je ne sais quoi to bring to impact community and make things better. So everybody is not going to have, and we've talked about this and I don't make any bones about it, everybody is not going to have the story of necessarily growing up on Hanover with that day-to-day lived experience. Right. And everybody's not going to have the story of saying, I'm going to lift up this work and gain all of the skills and knowledge, because you don't come through the world, not to say I'm have not had my fair share of struggle and exposure. You can't be Black in America and escape it, really. Virtually Black anywhere and escape it, but that's definitely not been my experience. And I was given a certain level of access that gave me that responsibility, which just kind of came through my family and the way I was raised. That community is the priority. I am because we are really sort of grounded in African-centered principles. And so with that, I went into public housing. So I really wanted to understand that, keep calling our families at risk. Kids are at risk. Well, aren't there protective factors? Are we a monolith? No. So how does a scientist evaluate this and show that that's faulty? So I studied even back then, like the levels of risk. Couldn't someone be at low risk if their mother, even though they don't have material wealth, but she's reading with them every day? She's taking them to and from school. They have a whole family network in this public housing community, or, whatever it is. And so we were able to show that. So those are the types of things I did. And I finished up with a degree in juvenile justice and psychology, and then went on. I got a PhD, master's and PhD. Did some work, some really interesting work with Black males, anger and aggression, and the school to prison pipeline. Howard Stevenson out of UPenn, did my dissertation there. Yeah. Kept going. Yeah. And did a fellowship, came to DC.
Yeah. So I want to make two statements and then a question related to those two statements. So one, the population that you're often working with, these are folks that, in general, a general statement, they've had sort of life has thrown them a lot, and they feel defeated. And the idea of somebody telling them no when they pursue the right thing could be really it could deflate their ambition, right? That's the first statement. Second statement is there are a lot of people who go through the education process. They acquire all the degrees. They know, they do the knowledge. And for them, sometimes they may not execute. They just have the knowledge, right? Those two statements being said, you're working with people who have to be inspired and who have to be pushed, and you have to push as well. So in that story where you're 18 and you walk into that facility and you're not taking no for an answer, I want to stop there for a minute, 'cause I think that's a pivotal thing not to just gloss over. Because at 18, you had something in you to say, no, I'm not a little girl. No, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I can go into this space and I'm not afraid. Yeah. I can add value. And for the people that you work with every day, we got to really plug in that mindset to them. And the people doing the work, we got to plug that mindset in. So talk about the mindset when you heard no, how you transitioned that and made that work.
It's interesting that you zeroed in on that. I actually spoke when I graduated with my doctorate. And I said, it was really on the notion about having this belief and what role belief had played in being able to meet the moment and the challenges. And the belief was that I had some worthwhile thing to do.
Got you.
And so, that's the part you can't always articulate or teach people. It's got to be in you. That flame, I think, the fire, the passion for the work, the community, the energy that I possess, I feel is a privilege, a blessing, a real calling. So it's a pull that's almost as visceral as, anything we love. No, you can't take it. You can't have it. It's mine. I got something else to do. I have a worthwhile thing to do. If you're standing between me and them, I got to get through or around you. And so one of those tools or assets is the credential, which I realize that people will use whatever they can to sort of discount us,
Right.
to maintain the status quo, to perpetuate the norm, however you want to state it. So that's like, okay, well, it won't be because I don't have the credentials. It won't be because I don't have the training, right?
Yeah, it's like that's very interesting. Like we've had conversations before about like that sort of thing of like ensuring that, you know, if we assume that there are things people weaponize to keep certain people out of spaces, like being intentional about no, we're gonna check all these boxes. They won't be able to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Just, and that's in a general way, but they won't be able to say no because of this. How did you come to that though? Right? Like, has there been instances in your development, in your journey, where you were told no, or you didn't get an opportunity, or at least you may have felt that you didn't get an opportunity because it was something that you didn't have, or a box that you didn't check? I mean, outside of being a black woman, right? Because that sometimes people will hold that alone could be reason enough for some people. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, were there instances where you felt like, you know what, that ain't gonna happen again? I'm gonna make sure that I'm coming to the table with everything that I need.
Humbly, no. I'm gonna qualify that though. Shouts out to my mother. Very, very, very close. And I was really raised to be keenly aware of who I am, what works for me, what my talents and skills are and what they are not, and how to set a plan in place and kind of follow things that are in alignment with that. So quickly, I sort of realized early on, like, I had a lane to run in. Had I said, oh, I want to be a psychiatrist, that wasn't my lane. I didn't want to go to medical school. That's not my fit. Had I said I wanted to be a lawyer, which was close, but that's really not my fit. Psychologist next door in the public interest at the nexus of public safety and behavioral health, build a health system to be where other people aren't. Oh my gosh, then you flourish when you're on your square. And it doesn't mean that people don't say no or things don't work out and everything is perfect. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. And at the same time, for the most part, I'm really, when I think back, strategic. I'll give an example. I'm a counseling psychologist and not a clinical psychologist. That was that much of a flip of the switch. Dr. Bolden is the reason why.
Shout out Dr. Bolden.
Said, why do you want to be a clinical psychologist? Do you know, I was in college, do you know why or the difference between the two? Won't bore you with all the details, but counseling psych is about the social condition. It's about systems. It's about context. It's about policy and all of these things that impact behavioral outcomes. And so I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going to live and thrive.
Sure.
Otherwise, it would have been a bad fit. So, there have been things where, it didn't make much sense that it didn't work out. But had I done my 360 plan, I would have been shoring up all of those things. So I learned early on, like, did opportunity meet preparation truly? And I was held to that standard really early on, where I'm like, well, if the game was to know what ropes to skip and which ropes to know, and if the game was to understand that you're new to that place and you need to meet some of the people who can tell you how and what you need to do to operate a core service agency, then you need to learn the game you're trying to play. Otherwise, it's not on them, it's on you. I was like, fair enough. Yeah. Understood. Got it. You don't have to tell me twice.
So you talked about this nexus, like the sweet spot where you now exist and you thrive And it feels like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like the way you described it, no one else was quite in that particular crevice, right, of that lane. And you kind of planted your flag, like, this is what I'm going to be. Talk about what it takes to be a visionary, to explain and really build a campaign around that space when it doesn't exist before you got there.
You know, I think as a society, generally, we struggle with the multi-hyphen people, right? So, like, we always want things to fit neatly in a box. When it has been tons of fun for me to say, yes, I'm a psychologist, but I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO in my day-to-day. No, I don't have a couch for you to lay on. You know, I don't see people one-on-one. I did all of these things to be able to run a system of care so that I would have all of the blah, blah, all the things we said, right? So even in this space, there are a few flags like that because, you know, it's the same flag that says to build a comprehensive strategy for any system. So there literally is no wrong door, and then all of it revolves around high quality healthcare in the public health space. And so what if we build it and it revolves around behavioral health, because how we think, act, and feel drives everything else. So in this particular space, which I'm very passionate about and have really done a great deal of work myself versus the larger team, it can be isolating because I don't necessarily often have very many colleagues with the same training. But what's the task at hand? The task at hand was to link up and say, you know, I had a talk I did years ago that said, you know, the marathon continues, but where are the runners? Well, there are plenty of runners. If that was about runners in my field, but in general, I can look left and right, and there you guys are. And then we keep on going out. And so when you say, I'm not here to cross into your lane, I'm not here to be a VI, but I want to partner with VIs. And I'm not here to be, you know, the actual person in government writing the legislation, but I'm happy to give feedback or understand what the task at hand is. Then I've been really a part of a larger coalition that feels like really what transformation in systems requires. It's got to have people at every level covering all the bases. And, you know, anyone who thinks that they're truly a one-woman or one-man show is confused. And so it has been, it could have been extremely isolating. When I started to notice that, I'm like, oh, this is what, and so bit by bit, you know, day by day, it looked like, hey, this Career Connections, they're all from Woodland Terrace. Can somebody take me there? I just moved here. I need to know the place I'm living and working and thriving in. That's an approach. That's the difference in your mindset. Yes, you don't have to be a native to own that you are in the place, whether you're of it or not. And you should respect the sacred ground you're stepping on. And so how you gonna be effective if you don't know the difference? I used to be the treatment director at DYRS, and I used to tell folks, it was so funny, I didn't know what this young man was saying. He was from the quarters. And I was like, are we saying quarters? Like, 25 cents, guys? Well, where's this place, the quarters? And so somebody finally said, he's saying, serve some quarter. I said, oh, I pass that every day. My goodness, I need to stop and see what's going on. And years later, I went there, and sure enough, he was calling my name across the playground and down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just don't know how many years I have talked about how you're the whole reason I know this community. And so oftentimes, or far too often, we leave the responsibility on the people who are where we arrive, or the people who are supposed to benefit from our services in some way, to hold the responsibility for us being competent, for us being aware and knowledgeable. And it's supposed to be assumed that you have expertise in that which you do not. And so I have expertise in what I have expertise in, but nobody was more of a scholar in what the Washingtonians experience, specifically in some of these communities plagued by violence, than they are who've lived it. So partnering in that way, everything started to open up because you had that human connection. And I'm like, I got people for sure. Yeah. It's still, there are some challenges because it's human nature to, like, say difference produces some sort of deficit, so I got to hold what I got, and but all in all, it's empowering. It feels revolutionary. It feels like what's necessary and what we all have to do at some point in terms of putting that stake in the ground, standing on it.
How important is it for your work to continue to be like led by the recognition or the identification of that humanity, like what you just said about the youngin you work with and your mindset around like him, or anybody like him, like how foundational is that recognition of humanity in the work that y'all do?
Oh, it's everything, and I think that's the difference maker, because I was watching something not that long ago with Tracy Ellis Ross, and I don't know if y'all saw it, but she was saying essentially that so many people talk about how much, how great she is and how they love to be around her and so on and so forth. And she flipped that and said, the true desire is that they feel good because of how they feel with her, only because she reflects their light. Mm-hmm. And essentially, they feel seen in ways that they always should. So it's not really her. It's the magic that happens when people are respected and honored and all of that. And so for me, that's everything. I felt like, oh, that's exactly the day-to-day plight. And folks think, that it's about what you wear or what your accent is, or, being able to say what high school in town you went to or whatever the case. That has not been my experience. I don't change myself. I am anything if I'm not authentic. And I show up just like this, just about every day, everywhere. And people respond to how you treat them and how they feel in your presence. Yeah. And that, for me, is everything. I have sat in more than, 100 homes in community in this city, and thousands of families I've been privileged to interface with in different capacities. And that is the resounding, like, you understand. Yeah. You feel me, yeah. And that you did what you said you were going to do. And those kinds of things are really those laws of attraction, of, true human principles that should guide us. And that's what makes all the difference. And so that's everything for me. And I've been very clear that it was my responsibility and unique value proposition, if you will, for community at large, that I would take them with me everywhere I go. If I've got the access and they don't really see me coming, and I'm in the United States Congress where I used to work or wherever, he's with me, all the other, folks, that's the conversation at hand. And when you see me, you need to be seeing them, because if we don't, amplify those voices when we get the opportunity and those experiences, that's the credible messenger in me.
Yeah. Here we go. I was going to ask, right, so we defined the nexus. We talked about the spirit you have to do the work. Tony talked about the impact of Pathways and it being more really a life transformational program than just a jobs program. Talk about your specific role in working with the cohorts and what are the expected outcomes and some of the experiences that you've had working with them.
Sure. So Pathways will forever be, I think, some of the most important work Community Wellness Ventures has done, some of the most important work this city has seen. Thank you both for your vision and foundational impact. I learned about pathways in the second cohort. And I just asked, okay, well, who's doing the behavioral health? How's it? I presumed that, this was a new agency in the city. So I pretty much expected that was coming through probably district government in some way. And it was like, not really. No, there's a few kind of ad hoc services we've been able to refer or do some things, but I was like, really? Okay, 1 minute. I came back and I said, I want to propose the Pathways to Wellness program, that component within the program, I should say. We've got to shift the narrative from violence not being a behavior, violence not being a response most often, to a number of stimuli. Yeah. If we understand this public health approach and if we understand cause and effect in its most basic sense, then we understand that if you're surrounded by something and that's what you're soaking up and people are consistently sort of amplifying, not necessarily people in your community, but people who place guns in your communities and people who place a value on life and death in that way, that the likelihood is that these folks have some healing to do. These folks have some pain. These folks have lost some folks. These folks have been robbed of access to safety and a peaceful upbringing and all of these different things. So that's the problem we need to solve, along with quality, housing, education, all the systemic factors. But as far as at the individual level, if we don't change and renew the mind, how are we going to transform the lives of these folks? If it was simple enough to say, give a job, don't do that, put it down, make a different choice, then we wouldn't be having the challenges we have writ large globally, not just in D.C., but globally when it comes to violence. It's born out of something. It's born out of a number of factors that come together to really change the way that people make meaning of problems and solutions. Yeah. And what their choices are in them. That has to be honored. And so, to specifically answer your question, I knew already that they would meet the criteria for the public health resources in the district around behavioral health. Why not just bring them to them? They are home community-based services. Mm-hmm. And so this is community. Let's set up a satellite clinic in the building. This notion that Black men, young folks engaged in the lifestyle are not willing, behavioral health is taboo, all of these things are myths.
Where am I so?
Bad services are taboo. People saying one thing and doing another will always be taboo. A wolf in sheep's clothing is never gonna pass muster in these streets. So the same codes and principles that mean life or death, as the sun goes down or any time of day in certain blocks in the city, are the same ones that the team has to show up with every day. If I give you my word that it's confidential, it's confidential. If I give you my word that I'm going to be here on Wednesday at 10, I'm going to be here Wednesday at 10. All of those things. And so the barriers that we know, maybe they wouldn't make it to their appointment if they're here from 9 to 5 and the clinic is across town and we know they have childcare responsibilities, transportation barriers, and all of the things, financial barriers. Bring it right here. We have empty rooms. All we need is a room with a door. It doesn't matter what it looks like. So they get a comprehensive assessment. starting from birth, how they came into the world, what their needs are, who their parents are, what their current status is in terms of housing, employment, sleep, food access, and all those things. And then we get into the trauma indicators, the adverse childhood experiences, their fears, their likes, dislikes, their goals. What is it that they would like to work on? What does success look like for them? The same people that folks said, no, not never.
Yeah.
If I could tell you all, and it's the most beautiful thing, the same guys, and I have nothing but the, most admiration for our young men and women. But the same guys that somebody else is outside afraid of because he got tattoos and a ski mask and he's on his DC's finest swag, gets in that door, in that room, close that door, and is crying tears, is saying how many of his best friends he misses, how grateful he is to have a place that he didn't have to be strong, be tough, be there for everyone. And I'm like, this is why we do this. So it starts there, and that alone, having that comprehensive assessment, but that comprehensive narrative gives us the power and the ability to shift the narrative on the larger scale outside of that room, albeit anonymously, that 93% of them meet criteria for depressive disorder. 87% of them meet criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. 94% anxiety disorder. On and on and on. Do you know how many of them were abused and neglected as a child? Do you know how many of them right now are saying they haven't had a good night's sleep? They cannot sleep. They're having racing thoughts. In any other population, we would be treating the health indicators, because what is more important than your mind?
Yeah.
So if you were saying you had 96% blockage in your heart,
Right.
you on a table. We need to operate. We got to, if not a triple, quadruple bypass, we doing a stent, we doing something.
Yeah.
But all of these men who were just boys,
Yeah.
boys who did not get their needs met. There is some responsibility. As much as we talk about blood on hands, there's blood on our collective hands when we look at the things that we know in terms of the conditions we expect our children to thrive in. And then we go, oh, you're 18 now. You're wrong. And you made that choice on your own.
And most of those guys, at the point, even when they were age-wise, right, still juvenile, still children, they started, because of decisions, things that they've been accused of, society been stopped looking at them in that way, right? Stop looking at them as a child. And it's so interesting to me, for people that's in our space, a lot of times when we're trying to unpack some of that for people, to give context, not to make excuse, it's like people never mind it. And it's always been so interesting to me that when we see a school shooting of some sort, and just saying that if it's a young white man, young white male that's accused of doing this, it's the first default is like, what happened to him? What caused it?
Right.
But like when we see things happen in our community with our young people, it's nobody's peeling back the onion at all. It's like almost like he's just a bad person who did a bad thing, who needs to be put away forever, right? And it's like, to the stats you just said, right? But like, we know that people are going through so many things, and it's not an excuse, but the context is super, super important. And the idea when people say we want to stop gun violence, or we want peace in our community, then the way to that peace, the way to that place, is to address the things that you just talked about. We have to figure that out. Otherwise, you don't really want peace. If you just want to think you're going to lock people up without helping them heal or address what's again, the drivers, then it's sort of like cycle. But like when it's our people don't seem to, they don't see them as people. So can you just again speak more to like what do you think needs to happen in order to bring that humanity back, or establish it for the first time with people in communities like the ones we work in so much?
Sure. You know, we have to own our part. We have to own the accountability. I'll say for me, everybody needs to see the pathways report we do at the end of every cohort. I need to do a better job of distributing the message as much as I can, or into the hands of the people who can get it to broader audiences. That's where that paradigm shift sort of starts from my end on that piece. We also have to have more critical and open conversations to challenge people who consistently dehumanize our children, and policies that consistently dehumanize returning citizens, which, of course, you're no stranger to that advocacy. But, you know, using terms like the Pathways ambassadors or the young men versus the ex-offenders that used to be the terms, and even terming them returning citizens, which is not a problem, but in many cases they are just citizens. They're just people. They are men who are residents of DC and products of DC. There's
no question.
Let's own that. They're products of our city.
And
if he can't read,
you understand? Like that. People got like you just acting like folks. And I never forget having a conversation. Pardon me, not to cut you off, but I just think what you just said about even a return to citizen piece, and shout out to, you know, all of the vanguard who helped, and it's beautiful because I was on a training the other day, yesterday, and I heard a guy from Texas use the term returning citizen, and that's out of here. That came
straight out of
here.
DC. Yep.
Shout out to people like, you know, Charles Thornton and Al Malik, Farrakhan, and Tyrone Parker, all that crew. You know, I came in after that, you know, right around that time. I remember me and Smooth, Eric Weaver, was having a conversation one day, and we talked about, man, it was right around the time I think the Return to Citizen cookout was about to happen. It's maybe 7-8 years ago. And he's like, bro, like we gotta start pushing just citizen.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's sort of, from that point, we've been sort of slowly but surely trying to, you know, we talk about rights restoration and all that. But I think, again, back to this, yes, people, just for the broader community, whatever, mainstream society, whatever you want to call it, that people aren't different from you. Right? And you got that person, especially when you talk about the younger generation, that could be your son. You know what I mean? And if your son went through trauma that had certain impacts, you would want other people to recognize that and try to be helpful, not to shun him or her, right? You and that's what happens. And then when it becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
You push people out, and they you know, and they say, well, here I go, in a way that we blame them. We don't take no accountability as a society for that.
People do what you expect. You always say that.
People do what you expect.
I mean, and I've had multiple opportunities to walk into that. Like, well, they're probably not going to participate in different settings. Same population, different settings, but the expectation is that, you know, if people don't participate or engage, the onus is on them. Only in this regard. It's not that you didn't bring what was required to be effective. I'm like, there are more standards on people, you know, I would say at the Charmin factory. If the task at hand is 100 rolls a minute and you only doing 20, you're not good at your job.
Yeah.
And you out of there.
Yeah.
So if the task is healing the community and they don't rock with you, you're not perhaps that good at your job. That's the job. That is the work. So, you know, Putting it also where people can get it and understand it. I think sometimes we get so excited about the technical terminology and the fact that we can use it. That we forget that the point is for things to be digestible. The smartest people can explain anything and everybody can understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everybody can understand, 8 out of 10.
Sure.
9 out of 10 of these men said they don't feel safe today. They don't have options right now. They need food tonight. So that is a way that the people who legislate can understand it. The people who are also supposed to serve and employ them can understand it. The people around the table, getting them through case management can understand. All of those things. What is our unique value? The ability to give the accurate narrative of the lived experience. And then that in and of itself is curative. It's almost like a weight has been lifted and nothing has changed except that you finally heard and validated.
Yeah.
And that's really impactful in and of itself. Think about how we feel when we have a problem that we don't believe anybody can understand. And somebody's like, stop, tell me. I get it. Yep, right there with you. You're already like, whew, okay, I'm getting somewhere. And then you start putting the things in place where they can actually see incremental changes, strategies, stress management, coping skills, services for the kids, the partners, the elders.
This is how far
all of those things where you exist in a community, a family, a village, and there's support for everybody.
And we're gonna move on from this line of questioning though, but I did want to raise just an example of something that happened with me in terms of the presence. Like I feel like I'm the guru. We've been doing this, da 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 da. And you be in the class and somebody might fall asleep. And I remember because my mind is like coming out of the sort of the space of like the most important thing. I'm trying to get you ready for the next level of work. Make sure you're serious. I'm tapping people, da da da. I remember I had a conversation with you about the fact that, man, that he sleep, but he in here.
And he feels comfortable.
Yeah,
Safe enough
that was
to
it.
sleep.
He feels safe enough in it to sleep. Shit hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, damn. Right? And that component, that added value to my approach. I'm still going, hey, you all right? Or let's go. But it gave me, no, it really did, even me. And I think people, really need to understand the degree of difficulty, like what these young men are really dealing with in their lives and what they have been dealing with. Right? We're not talking about just like this is a moment that they're going through right now. Some of them out the womb, they've been fighting. They've been surviving out the womb.
Most
every
of
step
them.
of the
We
way.
can trace it all the way back. Exactly. And folks don't realize, back to that sort of lane concept, the punitive lane is covered.
Right.
Nobody is getting out of here without facing the music in every way. We face those consequences in more ways.
Yeah,
and the part that even doing that work with them, you realize, which is the truth for all of us, even that which the system didn't impose, they got it here and here. That pain of their past is not lost on them. Exactly. So that's covered. Who's covering the other lanes around in this space? I don't have to be an apologist for. We all know what's right and wrong. They know it's wrong, and many of them are on the other side of large sentences that they've done, long sentences they've done to pay their debt to society for that. Since they were kids, in and out of secure detention and into the federal, Bureau of Prisons or whatever the case. This lane around making meaning of that lived experience, doing the necessary work to not repeat those same decisions, and being set up for success with the support around them to thrive beyond this moment, because that Pathways is the perfect example, and so many of the other programs, of the fact that we can't arrest our way out. The same people you put away come back. So at what point are we going to do the work of, really giving these folks the skills they need and the support they need, and they so deserve, because they didn't deserve so much of what they got already. So at what point are we going to turn it around, or at least be honest about the fact that the trajectory is intentional?
Yeah.
And so we're here to disrupt some of that.
There's no secret. There's no secret about it.
Anxiety, depression, all those things, like this cocktail for, honestly, disaster if not treated. One of the things that I've always thought about in terms of therapy is, if I go into this session, we talk, or counseling, we talk, coaching, we talk, but I want to walk away with techniques. So talk a bit about how you transfer the techniques that you can give to them, and how they can catch that technique or have it delivered to them and use it in their everyday lives. And I'm saying that because today I was in the grocery store and I saw this guy with like 3 or 4 kids, and he was just having a time, like, put that back. That costs too much. He was going off, and I said to myself, like, he just needs some techniques to be able to handle that situation. But it's hard to stop and get the technique. And he's got to deal with those kids every day. And I can only imagine all day the bickering that goes on and the lack of space for real love and affection to take place.
Oh, you saw me early?
Right. But we go through that, right?
Yeah, it was sure.
And so those sessions are great to sit and talk and have that space to be vulnerable. But when they walk away, when that door opens back up, like, what sort of techniques are they walking away with?
I'm glad you asked, and I think they'll also address the other part of your question. I went all into the assessment, and then they get the weekly one-on-one. They also get these training workshops on everything from, managing trauma. Trauma Race and Place is a trap group that they're in a group setting with men, and a male psychologist who meets them right where they are, about being at the right place at the right time with the right people doing the right thing. And so, as a play on trap, but it's Trauma Race and Place. And so there's a lot of skill development and opportunities to practice and model it in that space. And then on the one-on-one, and it's funny you said coaching, because we softened the term even early on. Let's call it your wellness coach. Yeah. LeBron has to have a wellness coach. Every successful person has a team of every type of practitioner covering them head to toe. So that seemed to like ease things. But the team is in as much training and re-up as, we want our folks to benefit from. We're doing that same work in terms of trauma-informed care trainings, culturally competent work for working with Black males, CVI trainings, all of these different things that are, of course, cognitive behavioral therapy, very pragmatic. We look back at these case reviews and strategize around what needs to happen, and they give them, a 1, 2, 3 sort of that's what that plan gives them, a kind of step-by-step guide, a passport almost for life and opportunities to practice it. And it keeps on getting kind of retooled over the course of the program, and then they're not dropped off, and that's the difference.
It's interesting that you mentioned LeBron and having like a coach for every segment, because I never thought of it like that, as an incentive to explain to a young person, yeah, you might have a community support worker, you might have a tutor and a mentor, you might have a parole officer, probation officer, you might have all these people, and you might feel like you're special in a bad way because you have that, but they're all hopefully working together for your success the same way that a strength coach would for LeBron, a wellness coach would for LeBron, a nutritionalist, right? So I never thought of it that way.
Absolutely. I don't know if y'all remember back in the day, there was something, Floyd Mayweather had some series on television or whatever.
The
24/7.
24/7.
24/7, yeah, the hard work, dedication. And you would see his
Yeah.
full day. But that masseuse would be on hand. The chef is in there cooking. He's going in with
Miss
the person
Jackson.
around his money.
Forgive me. I was just saying.
Of course, that's what you remember.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are all these people around, and they get the term like an entourage, or but every one of them has a function.
Yeah.
The accountant,
It gets termed an entourage. Ain't that Ain't that something?
Sometimes my team,
Yeah,
whatever.
But people
say,
put a label on stuff, but sometimes they lose the importance of, like you said, those. That in itself, I think is says a lot too. Like what do we allow? We allow people to label or call things something, but people lose like its importance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. So speaking truth to power, and amplifying the message of, I swear I'm gonna trademark this, the checkup from the neck up. But that also normalizes your whole mouth is not rotten because you go and get your, teeth cleaned twice a year. Get that whole checkup. Well, what you gonna do here? Oh, is it too? It's too late. I tell them. I say, oh, it's too late for me if you are really needing some long-term serious hospitalization. And they start laughing. I say, so what? Oh, yeah, it's normal. We safe. And so that's kind of really, I think, the task at hand, to continue figuring out how to put things where folks can get it, and understand our responsibility to make it accessible and desirable.
Trauma, right? Inside, you talked about people getting tools. You talk about like a lot of what all the people are dealing with, and I think this is like Suicide Prevention Month, if I'm not mistaken. I think September 10th was like Suicide Prevention Day. And a lot of times, like we, and me being somebody that has had friends and family members commit suicide, but a lot of times suicidal behavior, or what we see some of our folks go through, it may not necessarily be them, putting a gun to their head and pulling the trigger, but their lifestyle can be leading to
like a death wish.
Yeah, and even if they don't have one, but like what they've been through again is driving, the decision making, their will to live, their wanting to live, them caring about their own lives or anybody else's,
value
right?
for human life. That's right.
In your perfect world, right? What would it look like to help people, heal and address all the various traumas that we know folks are going through? What in the perfect world for Dr. C, what would that look like?
So, I think I started to kind of explain it earlier when you talked about kind of like planting my sort of flag, hanging my banner of sorts in the lane that we've been discussing around citizens who may have engaged in violence at some point or been impacted by violence. But I was also saying that we got to be comprehensive and holistic and stop building these bifurcated solutions to comprehensive problems. So the strategy that we have at Community Wellness Ventures is to really scale this model of the wellness villages. So Community Wellness Village, which is truly a holistic solution to the problems we know are like literally copy paste in poverty, in community. It's no different in any quadrant in the city in terms of what the most pressing challenges are in terms of, basic human needs, and then exposure to stressors and trauma and community violence and. So this wellness village concept includes primary care, workforce development, a community hub of sorts where people can say my healthcare space is also really just about me as a person doing all the things that need to be done holistically. Really this lens around wellness. And then if they need outpatient care for the entire family around mental health, sure. Programming, sure. Educational supports, absolutely. But what if they need inpatient? What if they need to stay somewhere for a month or two? What if this is an adolescent, anyone young as 12 up to 22 years old or more in DC public health, and they have opioid dependency? There's no residential solution for them, no treatment option for them in the District of Columbia or even within a couple hour radius. And so
We know that's a thing, by the way.
Yeah, I've had families reach out to me
we
about
know
that.
that's a thing.
Oh, well, yes. So we have heard the call to action, for years. And back to that lane thing, like, who's coming? Somebody on the hills, they got this base covered? No. So we said, all right, we'll do it. That looks like getting that certificate of need through DOH. Just all these processes. And when we work with young folks, we try to tell them, like, yeah, you say you want to open a business, but what kind of business? And that's going to require this license and that, certificate of occupancy and all of that. Well, and each of these things, we have to be in position to qualify and to ensure and certify all of our capacity to provide these services. And we've done that as a space, Ward 7, and are lifting as we climb every day to remove any barriers to the access to that level of care that's so desperately needed in the district. So that's what the vision is, having comprehensive answers to all of these issues across the lifespan, where we don't separate children from their families of origin, adults from their own children, and all of those things, and call it wellness. That's the actual antithesis, to isolate people in their healing.
Community
I saw a video.
Village.
I saw a video the other day where a guy was saying that the opposite of addiction is actually connectivity and not sobriety.
Yeah, how about that?
Right? So if you can connect people to villages, that actually is the opposite of what the activity they do with the addiction.
Absolutely. And then think about the logic of, in any situation, all of these proverbial cliffs we have. Okay, so you finally get into, let's just take it back for 30 seconds to pathways, and you start doing some healing. But that ends when you cross that stage. No, it needs to be connected to an entity that can continue. And not cost you anything because you're a resident of the district who qualifies for public health. That's exactly what it was built for. That continuity, that golden thread that's really going to say, for all of us, I wasn't 21 and done, right? Oh, well, you had 4 years of college. Don't you know everything? You were raised, at 18. Do you need your parents at all? Do you need your friends, your village? Every day today? Absolutely. To function optimally, you starve me of my children, my best friends, and they even in the world. But think about for those folks who none of them are even in the world anymore. And not only that, I watched them go violently. Oh my gosh. True. So, the idea of building that back around, it does take a village. And so why would we build a system where, okay, you get 28 days of substance use treatment and then good luck? No.
You all right now.
You all right? No. Then
28 days.
We'll see you downstairs every day for intensive outpatient and check in on you. And then you'll step you down to once a week. And then you'll go down and once a week for however long, no limit. Bring the family in. Help with your job placement. Help with that certification so you can work or get your education credential. All the things. And if you need a space to meet and have your community meeting for your business idea, come here and do that too.
Continuum of care.
Continuum of care. An actual clinical health home that says, this is your village and we are part of it.
What do you think is the next biggest piece that you need to complete that? Maybe that's a bad question to ask publicly, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a great deal of support. This mayor and this council put some great pieces in place, including, I believe you were in Councilmember McDuffie's office when that commercial property acquisition fund legislation was developed. So partnering on that with DMPED was revolutionary in obtaining the space in Ward 7 on Benny Road, not far off the 8th Street corridor. And at the same time, there are things like baked in regulations that aren't in place yet for taking care of adolescents in this way.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened before or in the recent past, and so there's no infrastructure for it. Well, there are protections in place in government that look like the public health system, of course, things having to be solicited and so on and so forth. But sometimes in so doing, the red and blue tape will get in the way of progress.
Yeah.
Because you can't even solicit for that which you don't, necessarily even have the infrastructure for.
Right.
And so that's looked like in addition, and when we talk about kind of being ready for the moment and also not knowing what curveballs are going to come, policy advocacy and government relations and the treatment model and the certificate of need and the highly qualified team and the street credibility and that's the multi-hyphenate.
Yeah.
Not get you somebody who could do both. Get you somebody who could do 1,000.
Sure. No, that
And
makes
growing.
sense. But when you first, I can imagine, right? You doing something, and I know y'all gonna figure it out. I know the city will figure it out. When you doing something that, like, in a way that hasn't been done, I just think about, though, like, when it's figured out, how much that will help. The Dr. C's that's at FAMU right now, or that's in, in Baton Rouge in high school right now, you know what I'm saying? Like that, hopefully that, just, carries you and the team, no matter what y'all got to do, and know y'all got support too, in that. And I really think about just listening to that vision about the villages, right? Like I'm just seeing not just the one here in D.C., but in Baton Rouge, in Chicago, in L.A., in Miami, in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's something that the things that we're talking about a lot of times too, and I think we got to do a better job as well on this platform. We frame out a lot of our conversations be rooted like in what we're seeing or what we've seen here. But this is really about what's going on across the country. Yeah. And the level of intent and we talked a lot about in this conversation about making the services, the making wellness tangible and accessible. And I think that right there, to do so, is so necessary around this country. And that's why it really, people can run with the narrative that black men don't like therapy, won't do therapy, especially the population we talking about. We've turned that on its head. The work y'all done has literally changed that. And I think that has to be made available to more than just the District of Columbia.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's something, too. That's a piece of it, Silas, to your point. Maybe at the very most fundamental level, there's a challenge around folks understanding that this is a business. And there's a business of doing good while doing well.
Yeah, I want that.
And,
you almost can't do good if you're not doing well.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so this is a scalable business model with actual assets and investments and bylaws and licenses and all of the things the
Checking all the
same
boxes
way.
like we talked about.
Right. And so, and it made me think about it when you talked about, kind of that Sankofa moment of going back and getting those who come behind us, getting for the ancestors who laid the foundation, but those to come. Something we always try to talk about, and I know you guys do too, really illustrating all of the steps, and that is not easy. It's not without struggle.
Right.
It's not without stress. It's not without moments where you were like at your wit's end. But what you do in that moment is the defining. It's bringing it back to LeBron. You don't think he about, crying in the gym sometimes? Like, it's just, man, you cannot believe how hard it is to push through. Yeah. But you have to do it. And so that's the championship for me if I'm going to be, the MVP in this lane.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask, I know we getting towards the end, but I do want to, a lot of the leaders that we've had sit on this couch, one of the things we like to talk about with them is like what holds them down, right? Mm-hmm. Not just from the standpoint of like what does Dr. C do for her wellness, but talk about the anchors in your life, you talked about moms, but just talk about that family of yours. You know what I'm saying?
Can I interject real quick? Because I was going to ask that a question like that as well. Because you got a different dynamic because you partner with your husband on this, right? Mm-hmm. Some people do this work or any work, and they come home and they can talk about it to essentially a third party, but he's in it too. Yeah. So to add to that, an addendum, add that dynamic in where he's as much in the work as you are.
Absolutely. So it's so funny when you think about the concept of partnership and, of course, marriage is the ultimate partnership in so many ways. Sure. But how we came to be is a testament to our alignment and commitment to community. We met here in D.C. on Capitol Hill. He was working on a committee on Homeland Security in the House, and I was working on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee in the Senate. Both fellows, both finishing. Well, I had finished my doctorate, came here from the Yale School of Medicine on this congressional fellowship because I wanted to know how policy and program was written, top level, so nobody was going to stop us. And he was doing a career shift from commercial real estate development for one of the largest companies in the country, didn't really have an eye towards building up community. And said, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going over to affordable housing and community development, where you could leverage this and not do damage at the same time. Sure. And so someone introduced us and said, y'all are two do-gooder community nerds. You should know each other. Yeah. And I'm giving okay, we should do coffee, definitely. What would you, how can I help? What are you into? And all this in terms of the work and the research and all that stuff. And I was getting like one of these, but like, sure, okay, we're going to do coffee. And coffee turned into a multi-hour conversation where they're like coming to vacuum, right? Yeah. But that conversation was really, it wasn't a date. It was about faith, family, what we believe, our charges, like what's happening in the world and what some of the solutions are. And, you just vibing and flowing. But usually in those conversations, somebody says something. I always say somebody else say something that's just kind of a non-starter where like they could be your friend or an associate or this was a good conversation, but not like further in your life, like something like they believe in a higher power. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm Christian, so
Yeah.
respectfully, that's nice, but you can't be my husband, whatever. Like, but everything was like checking those things that we just had so much synergy that I really just credit that as the foundation for, like, there's no question on like a belief system, on what we value, how we'd want to raise children, the messages we'd want to send around, like, where we want to live, we want to be in Ward 5, like all of those kinds of things that, like, we wanted to emit the same message around. It's no ascension to leave your people behind. Like, that's not, you haven't made it if you can leave DC. You can live outside, if you choose to, sure, but it's not because you made it, or in some way to the distance or the proximity to your community is a defining your success in some way. We don't see it that way. We're like, yeah, the closer the better. That's great. And so every day, and I'm like, and that's credibility. You catch me outside anytime. I can't hide. So that means I have to stand on what I say I do. So that being said, CWV came to be after, when you met me at Career Connections, we actually had a consulting firm. And I was doing consulting around program implementation and evaluation and strategic partnerships. That gave me a bird's eye view, along with some work he was doing around real estate in the city, to say, we got to build it. Yeah. And I'm holding our first daughter, who's now about to be 10. And I was like, like, you mean right now? Because I've had the good government job, and then I already, jumped over to consulting, but that was comfortable. You have your clients and you do your things. But it was like, no, we need to build the system of care in the way that we envision it. If you know all these people need housing, if you know the doors that real estate opens, if we could have this healing space like a village that could be developed by someone with a development background, and I build all the services in it and build all the partnerships for it, that is the special sauce. That's the contribution to the culture. That's the change in the narrative, and really the wealth that's not monetary. That's the legacy piece. That's what you say, all right, this is what power couples do. This is what Black women and Black men who say they are about not just elevating their own conditions, but rising tides lifting all boats. That's what the actual contribution or the evidence of that statement can be. And will be 10 years in next August. And no plans on stopping. So
yeah, that's all right.
Well, one thing I know, you're not going to take no for an answer. So that question you asked about, the ideal solution, and you bringing up what you all are doing, I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. I know it's going to come to fruition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
From your mouth to God's ears.
That's
every
it.
day. Yeah. One foot in front of the other. That's no different than the people we say we're working with. I say, I'm ministering to you, you ministering to me. Yeah. And we in this thing together, because those same messages of pushing through, pressing on, persevering, being resilient, it's applicable to all of us. It's applicable to all of us. So I see the plight of our community, and they've done so much with so little recognition and honor for it. Quite often, it drives me, for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Doc. And we appreciate Baton Rouge for lending you.
Come on, the heart of the city. I'm officially almost my 15-year anniversary as a As a Washingtonian.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Baton Rouge is always home.
Nah,
But
you
DC has
already-
made a good space and place for me.
That's right.
My girls are natives.
Yeah,
That's
ain't
it.
no
Good.
secret.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you again for being with us, and thanks to the audience for watching. I know they got something special out of this. I know we did as well. So we're gonna continue bringing these guests in, having these conversations that are important, and having more leaders like Dr. C talk about their work. And thank you again for supporting. Please like the page. Please leave a comment. Please share with your friends. We're trying to grow this discussion so that more people can see it. So until next time, Heart of the City, one love.
Peace and love.
Peace.